By arrangement, the dwarven cutter known as Phobor Strong in the Arm is taking you through the crowd to a very established-looking venue. The fog is thick today. The crowd round these parts are cloaked in warm robes, furs, and the occasional leathery wing. They jostle. The air is a riot of different smells, some pleasant, most not very, and the somewhat dangerous vines hang thick from the sides of this building, but not from the front, which is meticulously clean, very finely constructed, if not overly fancy. It is sturdy, with a nice blend of wood and stone, small windows and a glossy blue front door with polished brass knocker. Phobor raps the brass ring on the plate and the door swings open of its own accord, and you are smelling a soft breeze of sweet, clean air, crisp, cool, with a touch of wild flowers. The door is a portal to another realm, and Phobor ushers you through. Your feet step from the rough and worn cobbles to smooth river stone pavers, the doorway vanishing down to a hairline of depth as you pass through it. The city behind you, now no more substantial than a painting of a place, oddly animated but far less real than the bright landscape around you. The vista stretched out before you is a splendidly alien landscape, the perspective both distorted and spectacular, as rolling hills and dales bustle with forests and lakes, bright rivers, golden fields of grain, patchwork fields of crops, and mountains somehow just look like someone took the definition of a mountain out of some book about mountains, and there they are. But rising up the slopes of the mountains, the peak passes high into the sky for miles, and there, in shades of distant blue, the peak connects up with another peak, like a pillar carved by the gods themselves, and many miles overhead, in every direction, with no sign of a curve or any clue that this could be real. There is another land, another world, directly overhead. There is a moment where the brain just disconnects and normalizes the scene, where the gravity feels normal, the scene around you seems fine, and the vista above is far enough away to not seem like anything you might fall toward, but just a beautiful sight that the eyes are drawn to again and again, whenever there is a moment to stop and contemplate. Phobor greets a group of gnomes, one of which, in a very well-tailored suit, bright wool doublet, and feather-plumed hat, leans on a small cane and smokes from a prodigious pipe.
This is Guerto Manavar, Battlehouse Lackmodal of the Skinlake Trades Consortium. He has items you are looking for.
Pleased to meet you, I'm sure. You may call me Beetle today. Phobor assures me you have means to pay for and transport the goods, and I know him to be of good standing, so please do not follow me. Oh, and welcome to Bytopia.
Hello everyone, you're listening to AJ, this is the Mighty Gluestick, and today we're exploring the Twin Paradises of Bytopia, a plane of lawful good and neutral good, lawful neutral, a plane of peaceful civilization, a place of balance and sustainability. I always assumed that Bytopia was just sort of an island-sized mass with another one floating above it, connected by stone peaks that meet in the middle. I thought it was relatively sparsely populated by mostly gnomes, and intelligent though unable to speak animals in an idealistic landscape that has all the best features of lightly forested land dotted with farms and small communities. That's the general picture that most people have of Bytopia. Well, some parts of that are true, but there are some very important differences between that concept and the reality of the outer planet Bytopia for the world's most enduring role-playing game, Dungeons & Dragons. Bytopia is a spatially infinite plane, which means that you can keep travelling along in any direction on either of the layers of Bytopia forever. Now, let's consider that for a moment. An infinite land area, all of it hospitable and equally bountiful in resources. You can arrive in any number of different locations on this plane and be possibly millions of leagues from any other location you may have visited before. Bytopia is large enough to comfortably support not just everyone in Faerun, not just everyone on Abiatoral, not just everyone on Earth, but everyone who has and ever will live on all worlds in every primaterial universe. Getting into a conflict over land or resources in Bytopia makes as much sense as fighting over a cup of seawater in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Now, the nature of the two layers is different. One is far more civilized and the other is rougher, but we'll get to that. Bytopia, though mostly later the layer known as Dothian, is one of the few places outside of the Prime where one can find legitimate nations, kingdoms, republics, benevolent dictatorships, oligarchies, etc. Any form of government devoted to the well-being of its people can be found here. It's a plane of good, so good is prevalent. Dothian is a peaceful landscape of meadows and wildflowers separated by mountains and forests, lakes and rivers. It's home to the incarnate souls of farmers, craftsmen, honest merchants, and of course lots of gnomes. The gnomish Pantheon is found here. It always has been. There has been some changes to, as I've mentioned many times before, there's been some different world models of the different planes of existence. They've changed up over time as the gods have warred and fought and the spell plague happened and the time troubles happened. Bytopia is one of the planes where there's been some fluctuation and change in various aspects of it, but it's kind of remained constant as a place, as a thing in Dungeons & Dragons. Gary Gygax mentioned it in passing back in Dragon Magazine number 8 when he was talking about the concept of spatial, temporal and physical relations in D&D, and a short but very important article which I will be covering some of the concepts that he's got in there, because he's got some very, very important far-reaching concepts about his original thoughts about the design of Dungeons & Dragons, magical items, the planes, that sort of thing, resistance of magical items from various creatures, which I think it's important to discuss because he's one of the creators of the game, and it's influenced everything. But we'll get to that in a later video. I won't cover that now. So, Dothian, where were we? The days are very even. The temperatures are mild, not too hot, never too cold. There is weather, there is rain. There are gusty winds and blustery days with storm clouds, thunder and lightning, but for the most part, the days are warm and bright. There's no sun, but there is light that emanates from everywhere. It's a bright sort of springtime light. The nights are cool, but one could sleep on the ground for a night or propped up in the crook of a tree branch and be just fine, if somewhat at risk of being eaten by animals. All the animals of Bytopia are intelligent. They can't speak unless there's something like a raven or a parrot, for instance. They behave as though they normally would, though. Intelligence does not mean tame. A lion in Bytopia will still eat you. It might stop to ponder abstract subjects as it tears into your corpse, but that would not matter much to you at that stage. Like the people, the predators of Bytopia have so many resources that it makes no sense to risk getting murdered by angry humanoids, so most of them would avoid eating people. It makes sense. There is much easier meals to be had. Settlements are generally small, and they occupy valleys, and they're very diverse. And the valleys are also very diverse. While Bytopia is rich and mild, it doesn't offer food and comfort up to others on a silver platter. The residents here work for what they need, and they all tend to respect any sort of work on an equal footing. A farmer and an architect are equally respected in most Bytopian societies. Charity is fine, some greed is forgivable, but too much of either is not tolerated for long. There are laws, there are punishments, if need be, but it is purely reactive. People genuinely presume innocence until guilt is demonstrated. Factual, clear, and usually problematic guilt. So these people are good at heart. They don't have prejudices. They trust people, and they believe they see the best in people. Both Dothian and Shuruk, the other layer, have a similar landscape, divided up into a number of mountain valleys, with plains and meadows slowly becoming more and more hilly, eventually breaking into mountain chains before giving way to the next valley over. Rivers tend to be the best way to transport from one valley to another, with a strong ferry business for goods and passengers alike, taking people across Bytopia. Travel on foot is possible, but sometimes hazardous. For the most part, it's the pastures of Dothian that tend to be emphasised in that layer, while in Shuruk, it's the mountains that are most prominent, likely befitting their roles as settlements and resources. As for the transportation across layers, one means is, as mentioned, simply walking across from the spanning pillars, walking up a mountain, climbing up a mountain, and then flipping over and climbing down the other side. Centre Spire is the most prominent and largest by which this is done. At least 200 feet thick, it was long ago carved with a winding staircase along one side and a winding ramp on the other to allow easier transport, with a crisscrossing, spiralling tunnel through the pillar at the tip point where one layer's gravity passes over to the next. For faster transport, flying is the most reliable means though, with many various industries across the plane, both magical and technological, these are gnomes after all for the most part, devoted to just such means. The most common of such, for transporting goods at least, is a simple unmanned hot air balloon between opposing stations. So when properly filled and released, it just has enough heat to sort of fly up into the middle and then flips over, at which point it's lost enough heat to slowly sink back to the ground directly beneath it. Of course, any means of transport will have to be wary of the various natural predators that live within the intermediary, flying around in zero gravity, but such concerns are an issue pretty much anywhere we have weird environments like that. And I'm not privy to what sort of creatures live in that zone, very high up, miles up into the air, so I leave that to you. Shuruk is a wilder, more primal and chaotic place that has monsters, and yes, they will go out of their way to murder humanoids and possibly eat them. There are some other minor differences. The landscape is a little more rough and inhospitable, a little harder going. Cliffs are larger, the crags steeper, the rivers faster, cut by rapids and falls. Much of the settlements and industry here is underground. There's lots of Sverfneblin, or in fortified settlements, keeps and so forth. There is no war. There are skirmishes with monster races from time to time. And while there are dangerous beasts and such, there is a lack of any of the really terrible beasts you might find on a prime material plane. And why brings us to something unexpected. You see, Bytopia is home to one of the mightiest dragon races ever to exist. Aside from elemental apocalypse dragons, of course. The locals give them the respect they are due. These creatures are one very good reason why only a complete idiot would ever try to invade Bytopia for its resources. The Adamantine dragons call the Twin Paradises their home. Let me give you a brief overview and a lowdown on how to include them in your game if you need them. Take a red dragon, one age category above that of the Adamantine dragon you want. Use that as a template for its size, hit points, and the physical damage of its attacks. The Adamantine dragon is born with fully developed bright silver hide of incredible durability. They have the armor class of an adult dragon while still a hatchling. They have the ability to breathe a white-hot cone of magical heat that is 10 feet wide at their mouth, jets outward for 110 feet, and is 45 feet wide at the end. The flame will set rocks and metal on fire. It will set a warforged on fire. It will melt clean through a rock wall like a lightsaber. It's magically hot flame. They can also, only while on Bytopia though, breathe a cone of time stop. Creatures hit by it will have to save against the magic, or basically, it's game over, muchachos. They use that weapon once per day and only in the defense of their realm, but it's pretty potent. They are also magic users. They can polymorph, hurl magic missiles, and teleport. Self-appointed protectors of the Twin Paradises, the dragons who will come to the aid of any intelligent creature. They don't care about law or chaos, just helping creatures who are under threat. They have no compunction against eating unintelligent creatures, and evil creatures count as unintelligent as far as they're concerned, and they have a ferocious appetite when they are hungry. They lair in mountain ranges, not too far from the spires that connect the plains, usually, but they can be found anywhere they choose to be. Nobody's going to argue with them. In temperament, they are a bit like the silver dragons, with a hefty amount of raw physical power thrown in, and they quite enjoy physically tearing a bad guy, or a small army of bad guys, into several bloody chunks, or just a field of carnage, or just a pair of smoking boots and a pile of ash. They are just brutally powerful, and they keep a keen eye out for conflicts, as they consider taking on aggressive soldiers as a form of sport. Hence why I say that wars just don't happen here, and conflicts are rare and usually small. You better really want something bad in order to flirt with that sort of consequence. So Adamantine dragons don't generally travel outside of Bytopia without very good reason, and they can't be summoned from the plane. It just doesn't work. Just as other creatures can't be summoned into Bytopia unless they have counterparts that already exists in Bytopia. The plane keeps the balance and rejects disruption by magical means. It's just a physical law there. Dothian enhances magic healing and suppresses damaging magic. It also dampens elemental magic, while Shuruk enhances elemental magic, and I'm thinking that the powers of druids and such would also be enhanced there. Bytopia shares its borders with the neighbouring planes of the seven mounting heavens of Celestia. I've covered that in another video. And the blessed fields of Elysium, which I'll cover in another video. Travel is possible between Bytopia and at these places at certain locations. Given the infinite size of the planes, these locations can be very far apart, but the way to these neighbouring good aligned planes will generally be found in relative near proximity to one another in the locations in which they are found. So yeah, you can get here and there. For the purpose of gameplay, you could say that these locations, when you arrive there, there's usually a means to get from one plane to another. So you can go from Dothian to Shuruk, or the other way around. There will be a spire somewhere nearby, and there will be a means of getting to Mount Celestia or Elysium relatively nearby, say like a day's direction travel. So yeah, there's also pantheons there, of course, because it is a celestial layer. It is one of the upper planes of existence, and you find pretty much the entire gnomish pantheon. So you got Bearvan, Wind Wanderer, Baravar, Cloak Shadow, Caledon, Smooth Hands of the Svirfneblin. You've got Flandel, Steelskin, Gaedel, Iron Hand, Gal, Glittergold, Nobulin, Sergojan, Earthcurler. You've got, of the Krinish Pantheon, you've got Kiri Jolith, who emphasises battle and courage and heroism. You've got the Pantheon of the Kami? Kami? Yeah. And you got the Pantheon of the Uko and various others, and the Ennead. Yeah, so various different pantheons from various different sources have borrowed Bytopia, but it's always really been, of Faerunian pantheon, Ilmater used to be located here as well. But the gnomish pantheon has always been pretty much Bytopia as the home plane of the gnomes. And it makes sense when you think about it, because gnomes live in burrows and things, right? So if they're walking around and they look up above, and there's another land far above, not only is it very attractive to the eye, but it's also mildly claustrophobic. That lack of the completely open sky, the knowledge that there's the void of space and stars on the outside, that's comforting to a gnome on a deep level, that they basically exist within their god's own burrow, so to speak. Oh yeah, which is quite nice. Yeah, otherwise I'll just leave that there. I think that's sufficient to cover Bytopia, give you a good idea of what it's like. And I'll be back again shortly with a monster ecology video. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'll catch you again soon. Oh, and sweet dreams, everybody.